But this final didn't really feel like that, to be honest, and it now kind of means that Marco Rosa and Leipzig kind of finished the season with a nice kind of warm glow about them. We kind of I wrote a newsletter last week about how Leipzig have kind of low key been actually really impressive since Marco Rosa came in, and the kind of thing I hanged it on in a sense was the fact that because it's Leipzig, no one either cares or wants to know about it. So they've kind of gone under the radar as, well, actually, they picked up more league points than any other team in the division since Rosa took charge. So, in that regard, they have literally been the best team in Germany since then. And then, of course, they've also now marched to the German Cup final and won that. A tournament which they are getting more and more accustomed to, it must be said. So, a good finish for for Leipzig, and they're obviously going to lose some players this summer, but I think it kind of puts them in quite a good place to kind of tackle next season.
It was really interesting or unique to talk to Marco Rose after the game because I put this image on Twitter, so if you want to see it, the players obviously came in and showered him in beer. And by doing so, shortened all the recording devices in the press room that the DFB set up in the bunker of the Olympia Stadium, and which actually was really great for us journalists because instead we did a huddle, right, where we kind of all huddled around Marco Rose, and although he smelled really badly of beer, it was a more intimate atmosphere to have it was almost kind of like an open round table rather than a press conference because we could talk to him one-to-one almost. And I obviously, for if you want to write something on the final, which I did, right, you get much better quotes that way because the coach is more relaxed. He's not sitting behind a pult with a microphone, right? And he seemed quite bullish, which about the season and about the future. And, we asked him about Konrad Laimer. He just smirked and said oh, is that confirmed now? And then we asked him about Nkunku, and he smirked again and said oh, is that confirmed now too? Right? We all know, right? And then he said we have to do our, we were asking whether the silver cup, the one for the German championship is the next target. And once again, he smiled smile and kind of said, well, it all depends whether we do our summer homework the right way, which we now know, and we're going to cover in more depth on the transfer show this week. We know they are doing, right? They're actually moving extremely fast, as it seems. But there is certainly a sense now that they're doing all the right steps. And, he was also asked about Soboslai, and I wrote an article on that on Transfermarkt. He basically deflected up by saying, look, we just extended our contract with Dani Olmo. We have we don't want to really lose key players at this stage anymore. We don't want to because we have ambitions. And I find them in a really interesting place, and I find Marco Rose is very much engaged in this process. Obviously, he is from Leipzig, right? This is his hometown. It's very special for him to win a trophy with his hometown team. And so I think Leipzig are in a really interesting place at the moment where if they do a few things right, they could be a title contender next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, as you said, it's a nice moment for Rosa. You can argue about, you can argue to the cows come home about Leipzig and the construct of the club and, what it's there for, blah, blah, blah. And there was certainly plenty of people on my Twitter timeline kind of pushing back to winning the cup by once again kind of illustrating or pointing out, their disagreement, shall we say, with that sporting project or commercial project, you want to call it. But I think on a human level, it's hard not to kind of sympathize or to kind of feel some kind of degree of appreciation for Rosa because he has gone through a difficult kind of few months. Obviously, things at Gladbach kind of disintegrated very quickly. Then, he got this opportunity at Dortmund, which obviously came before things at Gladbach fell apart, and arguably why things at Gladbach fell apart. But anyway, he tries to kind of do things at Dortmund. One way or another, it didn't quite work out for him, in my opinion, and I think we're probably both agreed in this. We've on the record on the show at the time is saying we didn't really think his sacking at the time was appropriate, or not really appropriate, but fair is maybe the right term. it was a weird situation with Eden Terzic kind of sitting, waiting in the wings from day one. And it kind of felt like Rosa was kind of set up to fail at Dortmund to a large extent. So for him to then move to Leipzig, as you said, his hometown club, and to not only bring a lot of joy to their fans, but also to kind of prove himself as well very quickly, was really impressive, you know. And just for him personally, it's a great season, it's a great achievement. And you're absolutely right, you know, we talk a lot about this for Leipzig in the sense that, well, actually, we talk a lot about Dortmund in the sense that, you know, they kind of are only willing to go to a certain level and then they kind of begin to shy away from their responsibilities. But, you know, Leipzig are just as, they're just as big a culprit of this in the sense that they probably have a wage bill equal to, if not higher than Dortmund's at this point. And under successive managers, they have struggled to kind of prove themselves as regular title challengers. So, obviously, a lot of it will depend on what happens this summer when Nkunku leaves. I guess if he leaves, I think he's almost certainly is leaving. But again, we still not. It might be confirmed by the time the people listen to the show. But obviously, summer transfer moves permitting, even without Nkunku, this squad's still good enough to challenge for the Bundesliga, in my opinion. You know, they've got players coming in. Players they've already agreed to sign who are coming in. We talked a lot about the fact that guys like Szoboszlai have kind of stepped up. Timo Werner looks ready to go and kind of to step into Nkunku's kind of goal scoring shoes. So there's enough quality there for Leipzig to be a serious contender next season. And I think that's kind of the next step that Marco Rosa has to take with his team, because they showed in the Champions League that they've got guts. They showed that they can kind of take on big teams. In fact, the piece I wrote about Leipzig last week, my newsletter, actually illustrates the fact that I think the only team out of the top six that actually got the better of Leipzig over two league games is actually Union Berlin, who, you know, as we know, are kind of specifically set up to kind of counter attacking teams. You know, they're obviously a very defensive counter attacking team, but you know, they got the better of Dortmund, they got the better of Bayern Munich, teams like Freiburg. I think Leverkusen maybe level with them in terms of over the course of the season. But point is, Rosa has proven that he knows how to beat big teams with Leipzig. He knows how to win a cup with Leipzig. He knows how to kind of, and as I said earlier on, he knows how to pick up points better than just about any team since he joined the club. So, there's no reason why they shouldn't be title contenders next season, and anything less than that would probably suggest that something's going wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm really kind of fascinated by Marco Rose as a character, as a personality. And maybe it'd actually be really interesting to have him maybe on the show or like have an interview with him at one point, because like he does seem like a very multifaceted, more in-depth personality than some of the other people in the Bundesliga. You know, the Germans like to use the word sympathisch and charismatic, so which is kind of like a mix of the two things, right? And so it would be really interesting to do something more in depth for Marco Rose at some point, because I do think he's a really interesting coach and he's a really interesting personality.